Welcome to VWG. This Canadian is originally from Prince Edward Island, and he's a cartoon comic artist, Troy Little.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Let's get this started, shall we?
All right.
So, where did you start writing and drawing, and did that inspire you to be a comic artist?
Yeah, I grew up in Prince Edward Island. I'm still in Prince Edward Island, so keeping it real over here. I spent a few years working in animation in Ottawa as well, but kind of just started out just as a big fan of watching Saturday morning cartoons, reading comic books, and was my dad would try to put me in sports and things like that. I just wanted to watch cartoons and Looney Tunes all day. So he gave up, and eventually I was in grade 12, and they said, you need to kind of decide what you're going to do next. And I said, well, I want to go to Ontario, to Sheridan, and take some art courses there, maybe get into animation. So I took the illustration course there back in the early 90s. I thought I'd go back for animation, never really did. And but still ended up working in animation for a lot of years in Ottawa. I was starting out working in background animation on like a lot of kid shows, Franklin the Turtle and all these other different Nelvana shows. And I kind of just found my way into like small press black and white publishing of comic books as like a little side project I was doing while I was doing the animation job during the day. So that's kind of got me a little bit of the both worlds at that point anyways.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Have there been any notable people that commented or complimented your work?
Yeah, there's a very, infamous comic book series called Cerebus. It's by a guy named Dave Sim. He's out of Kitchener, Ontario. And he did 300 issues of a self-published comic book over 26 years. And he was a big inspiration to me starting small press comics. He was a big advocate for it, and he did a lot of how-to. So back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, I was, not much in the way of the internet at that point, and how to do these things was very much a mystery. So I followed a lot of his kind of like guidelines on how he did it, and then tried to figure it out as I go. And I started by self-publishing a small press comic, and that eventually got picked up by IDW Publishing down in the US. And then from there, I had a few more projects in the works because I had a relationship with them. They took on the next two, and a couple of my books actually got an Eisner nomination, which is kind of like the Oscars of comics for those people who don't know comic books. So never won anything to this day, but I've been nominated about 4 times now, so that's pretty great. And it was pretty much just working in animation during the day job and comics at night sort of thing for a long time. And it was Paw Patrol that kind of broke my back. I was working on season 1 as storyboard artist for Paw Patrol. And I said, I can't do this anymore. It's just brutal doing storyboards. So I reached out to IDW and I said, do you have anything I could do in the licensed division? Like I've done my own creator-owned work with you guys. We have a good relationship. And I got lucky because they had just gotten the license for Cartoon Network, and they handed me the Powerpuff Girls. So I got to write and draw the Powerpuff Girls, which is the first new material from that series in over a decade since it went off the air originally. And that kind of kickstarted a lot of my work with licensed comics. I just kept doing the creator-owned and independent comics and stuff like that as well. But I found myself having all these really cool opportunities, kind of living in both worlds, going to conventions and meeting different artists and writers, and kind of learning as I go how to like navigate this comic book industry.
I bet.
Yeah.
Do you plan on like writing your own characters for a TV show one day?
I actually did that. When my first book was called Chiaroscuro came out with IDW, I had started working on a cartoon graphic novel called Angora Napkin. Me and my buddy Nick Cross had come up with this with the idea that it would be an animated series. At the time we came up with the idea in the late 90s, it was just prior to the Powerpuff Girls coming on TV. We had this idea for like 3 girls in a pop rock band who had these Scooby-Doo type mystery things going on. Sort of a bit of a Josie and the Pussycats kind of thing. And we had that kind of being in development at the studio we worked at. We wrote a lot of scripts for it, and I had a lot of ideas, but it never really took off. So Nick kind of abandoned the idea, but I kind of just still loved it. And I was like, asked him one day, I said, do you mind if I kind of like take these characters and make some books out of them? And he's like, go for it. So I did a graphic novel called Angora Napkin, and it got an Eisner nomination from IDW, through IDW, I should say. And because that got some attention, I thought, well, I'll do another one. So I did a follow-up book called Harvest of Revenge. And while that was happening, Teletoon, the Canadian cartoon network sort of thing, was doing a late night, sort of an adult cartoon party kind of thing. They were looking for late night programming. And so what they did is they put out a call to go across Canada looking for 10 different ideas that they would develop as pilots. So we submitted Angora Napkin as a pilot, and it actually got picked up. So the idea that we were going to start this as a cartoon eventually came full circle, and we did get to actually make a 22-minute animated pilot that was on Teletoon Halloween night in 2010. And you can find it online now. It's on YouTube, broken up into 2 parts. And Nick came back because he went on to work in animation down in California. And he came back and directed one episode, and I directed the other one. So it was kind of cool to actually have it come back around and bring it to life, and then, figure out how do you, oh, now they have to have voices. Now we have to have music and all that sort of thing, So it was a whole different dimension, taking Angora Napkin from comics back into cartoons again. So that's been great. And then I did a follow-up too. I just did another Angora Napkin book called The Golden MacGuffin, which we kickstarted last year. And Kickstarters and crowdfundings can really, really good to us. It's a good way to get going independent comics and press and stuff like that.
Oh,
so yeah, there's lots going on.
Yep, a whole lot of cartoon characters.
Oh yes.
Do you have a favorite comic book to read, or a book
boy.
in general?
When I was growing up, I was a huge fan of Gru the Wanderer. Have you ever heard of that one?
No.
Sergio Aragonis was this amazing cartoonist for Mad Magazine who would draw these little tiny characters in the corners of the magazine panels. And back in the early 80s, he created kind of a Conan parody of a very, very stupid barbarian named Gru. And it's one of the greatest, longest running creator-owned cartoon characters. It's just so much fun. So he's been a big influence on me for sure, growing up with Gru. Jeff Smith's Bone was a phenomenal series, really just pushing the medium of what cartoons can do. And there's so many. I mean, our entire house is just filled with comic books and graphic novels.
I can see it in the back.
Oh, this is my wife's desk. She actually draws comics as well, Brenda Hickey. She's worked on My Little Pony and Agretzko for Netflix, as well as her own creator-owned projects. So this is partly her desk here, and my desk is over there. And all day we just spend in here making comics and drinking coffee.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I have no more questions for you. Do you want to ask me questions?
Yeah. Okay. So how did I come up on your radar? How did it say you were like, tell me how you found me, I guess.
Well, my current plan is to interview like 15 Canadians across Canada, like from Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Yukon, and all 10 provinces and 3 territories, and put them on YouTube. And yes. I found you off of Wikipedia, notable people from Prince Edward Island, and you showed up.
Cool. Well, there's a couple of comic book people here now. You might know of a movie called Men in Black.
Yes, I've heard of it.
So the comic book Men in Black was originally drawn by a guy named Sandy Carruthers, who is from Prince Edward Island here. He's a friend of ours. Actually, Brenda was a student of his at the Holland College art program. So we have that nice little comic tie with Men in Black and Sandy there. That's pretty awesome. And we're starting to develop a good little community of people who do comic books around here as well. It's grown. Oh my God. When I was a kid, there was no comic shops here. Like, it's a small place, right? 140,000 people in the whole island. And comic books weren't a big thing until, much more recently. And pop culture has kind of become a larger presence. And so having some comic shops show up, the Comic Hunter and formerly Lightning Bolt was around. Strange Adventures in the Maritimes, it's got great shops in Halifax and Fredericton. And now we're getting Comic Cons too as well. So it's really grown over the years since I was a kid. I would have lost my mind if I was a kid and there was this kind of, cartoons and comic book people around all the time you could talk to. and just see like people making comics and web comics and that. It's pretty exciting. It's very, very cool.
Yep, I bet it is.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's been a really cool and random career. I started out as going to art classes, after school, and I just always loved drawing. So I can remember, sitting in art class and drawing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this would be the Ninja Turtles from the 1980s, where they were in black and white Mirage Studio comics. And many, many years later now, it's just this strange, through happenstance and circumstance, I was working on the Powerpuff Girls comic, and I had gotten an email one day from IDW and Top Shelf Publishing, and they were looking for someone to adapt a novel called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. This was adapted into a movie a few years ago with Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro. They were looking to do a graphic novel adaptation of it. And so for some reason, they came to me, the guy who draws Powerpuff Girls. Go figure. and I submitted a pitch for it because it's one of my favorite novels. And they said that, that's your new job. You're off Powerpuff Girls. Once you finish the story arc, we're going to put you on adapting a novel, literary novel, into a full graphic novel. So that was very cool. Now, if you're not familiar with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, it's a 1970s kind of LSD drug trip through Vegas with the journalist Hunter Thompson and his attorney. So I pitched the idea when the book was done to the publisher. You should drive me down, or you should fly me down to LA or in Vegas. Rent me a red convertible, and I'll dress like Hunter Thompson with a bucket hat and a cigarette, and we'll go do a book signing, and I'll just kind of like act the part. And they said sure. So I flew down there and put on this patch jacket, a bucket hat, and yellow glasses, and did my best Hunter Thompson impersonation. Oh. And we started the book tour at IDW Publishing's headquarters in San Diego. And they said, do you mind if, when we're doing your signing, do you mind if Kevin Eastman signs with you? And Kevin Eastman, if you're not familiar with him, is the co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So the stuff that I was drawing as a kid, I'm here now as a man in costume sitting next to the co-creator of the Ninja Turtles, thinking, what is my life right now? This is crazy. So, from there, a couple years later, Kevin messages me out of the blue, and he's like, I want to work with you on some projects. And honestly, that's what I'm doing right now over here, is I'm working with Kevin Eastman on various projects with him, Drawing Blood and the radically rearranged Ronin Ragdolls series coming from Image Comics next year. Very, very crazy stuff happens in comics. And the people you meet are like some of the greatest people and the most fun. And it's just an exciting, crazy little niche world to live in and work in. You spend a lot of time at home, alone, at your desk, day and night, weekends, all the time. And you get an opportunity to either do a comic convention or something like that, and you get to meet other people who are doing the same thing as you, people you admire, and just kind of gush over their work. And you find out you make friends in the industry, and it's been really great. We've been doing this, me and Brenda, for over 10 years now, professionally together, and we got big plans for next year as well. We started our own little publishing imprint here in PEI called Pegamoose Press. And we'll have a couple more books coming out from there as well. So lots to do, lots of fun.
Are you going to come to Canada Fan Expo next year?
We've tried. We've been to a few fan expos. I know Brenda was at the Toronto one, I think last year, maybe. We've applied, so I think we just have to wait and see if our application goes through. It's always a bit of a competition in some ways because everybody wants to do the big shows and stuff like that. So you put in your name, you kind of say, this is what I'm doing, this is what we've done, this is what we're planning on doing, and what we can offer in the way of like panels and how we can talk about the craft or whatever we can offer. And hopefully a few of them want to call you back.
Okay. Yep. Well, is there anything else you want to ask me?
No, I think I've been babbling away here, honestly. Hopefully, but if that sparked any questions with you too, I'm here at your disposal. So.
Well, I would like to thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Troy.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Graham. It was appreciated. having a chance to just talk about what I do. You know, again, it's a quiet, lonely existence here. I'm lucky to have my wife who does this as well. And it's nice to be able to share with people what we do and where to find us. Pegamoosepress.com is our website. And yeah, see some of our creator on work there, kind of what me and Brenda come up with. So yeah, thanks again. Appreciate it.
No problem. Link in the description.